Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we tackle all the issues. We talk about ways to improve the customer experience at your stores. Because the better the customer experience, the more they come back to you for everything they need when they need it. They will become your biggest advocates. They will bring you their friends, their family members, their coworkers, the people they go to church with. They will tell their entire online communities what a wonderful store you are to do business with. And that is, of course, the goal. This is my 44th year in automotive. I love it every morning like it's my first morning. And I am very fortunate to have a great group of friends and associates that come on here every week that share with us what they do or what they've done to improve the experience at your stores. And this week being no exception, I'm charged up about it, pun intended, because we're going to tackle some of the misconceptions around EV ownership. And I figured what better way to tackle that than to bring on actual EV owners. These are the guys that drive the cars. Makes perfect sense to me. So gentlemen, welcome to the show. Going kind of round robin. Why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about each of you, and then we'll jump right in. Starting with you, Ray.
Well, hello, everybody. Ray Hernandez. I am a Divisional Fixed Operations Director with the Sonic Automotive Group. I oversee Toyota, Lexus, and Honda for the company throughout the United States.
Excellent. John Ellis.
All right. Hey, good. Everybody, hello. John Ellis. Been on the show before, but I am excited to be here again because this is always a good one for me. We learn a lot. We talk a lot. I am the founder of BEV Everything. We're an EV consulting company, a training company. We've got a content company as well. So excited to talk about not only everything we're learning about the industry, but also my personal experience having an EV for 9 years.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bruce Schreiber. I'm the only non-industry civilian in this broadcast. I am a lawyer. Everybody needs to take 2 steps back now, I understand. I'm a lawyer from Connecticut. Purchased my first EV about 4 months ago. Here to share my stories, good ones and bad, about what EV ownership entails. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, welcome. We've got a couple of comments coming in. First one from my friend in New Jersey, Larry Feldman, says, good evening, gentlemen. And we've got Marcelo Arcele, says, hashtag Team Live. I'm not sure on that name. Do I know Marcelo? Brian Cates, good evening, everyone. This is great. And Marcelo is from Hotlanta, Georgia. Russell B. Hill, well, hello all. Going to be a great one tonight. Thank you and welcome. All right, so the elephant in the room. Oh, I can't get an EV because I'm not going to be able to charge my car because they don't go very far. And you know what I learned along the way, and I pick up a couple of things from John, who's I've had many conversations with about EVs and many others. The average person drives less than 250 miles per week, and they typically fill up their car once a week, right? And to do that, you have to drive to a gas station to fill up your car. The typical EVs, and this is changing all the time, I think 250 to 270 is what I see as average ranges. But from an earlier conversation, I heard from Ray that he gets more than that. So, and the difference is you don't always have to go somewhere to charge it. You can plug it in at your home, whether it's an outlet or a more sophisticated charger that you can install in your home. So whoever wants to go first, tell us about your experience regarding the fear of running out of juice.
All right, I'll dive in. I got my car in February, and I actually went on a little weekend vacation the first weekend. I got the car on a Monday, and I had range anxiety. I'm not gonna say no. But you know, the bottom line is, I've said this before. You just, unlike with a gas car where there's a gas station every quarter mile or less, you just have to plan ahead. You just have to know where you are and plan ahead and know where the charging stations are. Now that can also still be problematical, and I think we'll get into that later when we talk more about the infrastructure. But at the very least, you need to plan ahead, know where you're going, know how far you're going, get familiar with the range on your vehicle. So, that first week, if my range showed it was, under 150, getting towards 100, I started sweating a little bit. But I soon learned that that wasn't necessary, and now I routinely get down. I try not to get down below 75 because you never know. All the chargers might be broken, and you don't want to get what they call bricked. I'm sure you guys have heard that expression, which means this beautiful vehicle I have is a brick. It ain't going anywhere.
Now, on your car, now I've been in Teslas, so I kind of know a little bit more about those. But in your car, is there on a screen where all the stations are?
Well, just recently, the infotainment software was updated, and they do a better job at locating EV chargers.
Okay.
But there are. I mean, I have on my phone at least 10 different apps where you can find where the stations are, and you could see indications that other users have left. For example, I charged up today in White Plains, New York, and one of the three fast chargers was not working. So I put that out there, and you could report that in the apps. And I also belong to at least 8 or 9 different Facebook groups where people talk about this stuff, and you could report these things, so on and so forth.
So for you, it's primarily on a phone app.
Yes, but well, see, I use the nav in my car to find a charger because it does automatically. If you put as your destination an EV charger, it automatically commences battery preconditioning.
Okay.
Which you know what, it didn't even do it today because it was in the 80s. I don't think it's necessary. John could probably answer that better than I can. But it didn't even turn on the preconditioning today because it was warm enough. But in the winter, the preconditioning enables you to charge faster. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, it prepares the battery for charge for sure. And another thing too is your, fast chargers they regulate the kilowatts that are transferred. When you get closer to 100%, it goes significantly down. You can watch it. So if you're at 80% and you're stopping, the preconditioning, if it's going to happen, is going to be on a much smaller frame because it's not going to give you the 174 kilowatt transfer, the 220. It's going to give you the 73 or the 32, which doesn't require the battery to be at its optimal performance, right? Right. Yeah, that's what I love about Tesla, and I think it's kind of the way Paul's going. And Ray, you'll know this because as a Y owner, and you're a Hyundai Ioniq owner, right? And is it a 5? Bruce, yeah, it's a great car, by the way. So it's really good, Paul, for your audience to hear from Bruce because life is a lot easier for Tesla owners. Ray will tell you, Bruce feels the pain a little bit more. He won't much for long because they're all getting together and figuring this out. But for us, we've had a Tesla Model S in the family for 9 years, and from day one, the dashboard of the car tells you all the things that Bruce is a little concerned about: where they are, if they're operable. Are they DC fast chargers or destination chargers, which means they're just level 2 chargers, and how much range you will have when you get there. And the reason why that's important, Ray will know this, if it's 10%. So if I'm going 240 miles, mine's a 240 mile car, Ray's is 320. If I've got 10% left, typically that's like, in real terms, it's probably about 7%. So if I want to take a detour, I know not to. Does that make sense? Yeah. If I got 30% less, then I can stop and go to the Dollar General or the Walmart and, maybe move off track to a restaurant. So it really does keep me very controlled. And that reduces range anxiety in a way that probably, Bruce, you just don't have yet. I got to tell you, we travel all over the Southeast in a 240 mile range car. And I mean, from Atlanta to Baton Rouge to South Florida, or, in the southern areas of Florida. no concerns as long as I'm route plan. But even for Bruce, like if he was route planning, the manufacturer of his vehicle doesn't own a charging network. So the connectivity and the continuity and the seamlessness is just not there yet. So I would probably have a few different anxieties than I have today if I was a Hyundai owner. So it's interesting, that manufacturers of different vehicles have different constraints that or need to be controlled by the owner. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more from Bruce as well. I think it'll help us all understand the true landscape of the EV consumer experience.
And Bruce you said there's a software update coming for adapting onto the Tesla network, correct? That's coming in July next month?
Well, that's what they told us a couple of months ago. We'll see what happens. But the problem again, though, is these magic docks, they're only at about 10 locations in the entire country. I'm lucky that one of them happens to be like 4 or 5 minutes from my house. But these magic docks, as of the last time I checked, are only at 10 locations around the country. And who knows, now that they're making these other deals where the Tesla will become the standard, maybe they're going to cut back on this whole program, this magic dock program.
Now,
Yeah,
Ray,
I love to hear Ray's experience with the Y. That's a different vehicle.
and you have a lot more range on yours. You said 320 miles?
Yeah. So my wife. So let me clarify. As a ICE old car guy, my wife decided to make this purchase. I had very little to do with it other than saying yes, dear. But the whole deal started for us. I was on a trip in California, and the only car that was available to rent was an EV. So I got to experience range anxiety firsthand, and it was terrorizing. I had a Model 3, and I was in Southern California. I made a 100+ mile one-way trip down towards San Diego area, and I had about 20% battery left, and I needed to go 100 miles. Well, that wasn't going to work. So I got on my phone, like I've done, pretty religiously for a while. I'm looking for charging stations, and I found charging stations all over. But, I get to the charging station, and there's a charger that's kind of this big around, and the Tesla's not that way. And it's like, so I found another one, fits the Tesla, but the screen was blanked out, and couldn't tell if the darn thing was working or not. And I remember a friend that was a Tesla enthusiast at the time said, you just got to do everything in the car. So I put the phone down and I programmed my destination in. And to John's point, it said, go this way, stop at this charging station. At this point, you'll be at 12% charge. You'll need to be there for a certain amount of time, 20 minutes, I think is that, to charge enough to get to your destination. So it was like, I'm sitting here. It says 20 minutes to charge enough to get to your destination, or 42 minutes to charge to 90%. So I look up and there's a taco stand there. I said, okay, I'll go grab a taco, whatever. I get back to the car and I still had 5-6 minutes left. And okay, well, this is really cool. It worked out because I'm listening to the car, but now I'm sitting in here for 5-6 minutes. What do I do? And I see this little, what looks like a joystick controller on my dashboard. So I pressed it and these video games popped up. So I started playing chess against myself. And next thing you know, the car is charging. I'm like, but wait, I'm not done playing chess.
It happens to me all the time.
It was really an interesting experience.
I didn't want to leave. Yeah.
So, and one of the best things to me, my wife has driven ICE vehicles for forever, as most of us have, right? But one great thing is we installed the Gen 3 charger in our garage, and my wife never goes to a gas station anymore. And to me, that's a little bit of a safety thing as well. I don't worry about, she's in a bad part of town or, running low on fuel, what's going on. She gets home, and when the car gets down to the 60% range, we'll just plug it in and it'll charge overnight, just like the phone. When you pick it up in the morning off the charger, it's ready to roll. She drives 8-10 miles round trip to work. We never have a concern with the range. So we're using exactly what it was intended for. We are planning a drive to South Florida because we have family down there. So it's going to be around a 350-mile trip. So we'll get to experience the specific stop points and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the trick for us for me was use the car. Tell the car where you're going, and it does everything else for you.
Yeah. I want to get to a couple of comments, and then I want to build on that. Let's see. Mike Vogel. Seems like we were just speaking earlier. Mike says, I love my Toyota Prius Prime. Best of both, gives me electric and gas as needed. That's a pretty good covering all the bases vehicle right there. For those with anxiety, between gas and chargers, you're never, ever going to be without anything. Michael Dean Offmuth, hello everyone. And Lamont Harris says, good evening. Mike Vogel says, Toyota Corporate has it right by producing plug-in hybrids for the immediate future. Our infrastructure is at least 10 years away to handle any kind of volume electric cars. I saw something in Automotive News the other day. It just came. I didn't get a chance to read it yet. But it said something they're talking about 900-mile range. John, I don't know if you know about that yet. I'm going to guess probably. So maybe we could talk about that as well. Joe Chambers, evening all. And Dina Haynes, I drove my Tesla as a sales rep. Never had an issue because I always had a plan, and Tesla made it super easy to do so. Where I wanted to add on to Ray's was that I had opportunity to spend time in a bunch of Tesla Uber cars when I was in Dallas for NADA. And I was amazed because all of these Uber drivers, they are what I would call power users. They drive 7 days a week, all day long, sometimes all night long. And if these people aren't concerned about it, I'm thinking John Q. Public shouldn't be concerned either. I used to have a fear of flying until my friend Gene was a pilot for American Airlines. And, I was speaking with him I was flying with him. He said, look, I've been doing this for 30 years and I come home every night. So what are you worried about? You fly a few times a year. And at that point, it sunk into me that, yeah, maybe, Dale Carnegie, 90% of what we worry about doesn't come to fruition, right? And John is an interesting story because here's a guy that's got a 9-year-old Tesla. So the technology that we have today is somewhat different than then. And here's a guy that's traipsing all over the place. You just completed a trip down south across the Southern Plain or something, right? With your car?
Yeah, I did. 450-mile trip one way. Of course, I had to charge twice because you remember the route planning, and Ray mentioned this, and when he was saying it, I thought about it. Getting there with 10 or 12 or 20% less is not enough unless you're going home. So typically what would happen, so I was playing in a golf tournament up in Marietta, and I could have stopped only once and got in there with 12%. But then I might not have enough to get to my final destination, which is the hotel that had a charger. So I stopped one extra time, and this is what the beauty is. Ray alluded to it as well. Bruce, you'll know it. All the chargers that are of quality and are on the map and are reliable, specifically the Teslas, are in nice, lighted, secure areas with Academy Sports, CVS pharmacies. They're not in the back of the mall with the garbage cans. Some of these Electrify American Bling, they're started off on a shoestring budget. I get it. I'm thankful for what they've done, but they're not in the best areas. The good thing about the Tesla model, I've not found one yet, and I've been from Texas all the way to Florida, all the way up to the Carolinas in mine, where I couldn't get something good to eat, take my wife shopping, visit a mall, all those good things, right? And to Ray's point at the same time. So I say all that to say, those long trips you do. There's a new Tesla owner, and they were they were charging at the hotel with me at night. I said, man, I got just enough to get. And I said, yeah, but when you get, what then? He's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Well, there's not, when you get there and you're I think he was going to his mother-in-law's house. Well, I said, do you have a 240 charger? Because I do have one for long trips. I can stick it in my mom's dryer and charge my car like I do with the one, that thing. Oh no. So you have to kind of get used to thinking about all the things that are important. So I stopped twice for that long trip, Paul, where I only really needed to stop once to make the trip. But but you have to think about your entire journey and not just from point A to point B. But it was a very look. I'm gonna be with Bruce. Same here. There were a couple of times based on speed, I slowed from 80 all the way down to 70, sometimes 68, right? Because speed kills range. Nothing kills range more than speed. Period. And if you'll stay 70, you'll get almost true range. But if you go to 80, you'll probably get 3/4 range. So you have to be really careful.
And what new owners don't know, if they have not done their research, is that you turn on the heat, you turn on the air conditioner, it kills your range. It was pretty hot today. I had my air conditioning down around 67 because it was really hot after we had gone for a walk, actually. So sweaty and hot. And it actually took away, what was it? Like 50 miles of range when I had the air on, at 67 degrees and the fan up all the way. As soon as I turned that off, the range went up 50 miles. So, again, if for those listening, if you're contemplating being a new owner, you do your research, know what you're getting into.
Ask questions. They don't tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
They do not. Even today, I'm in Tesla stores now doing consulting, and they don't tell you, don't charge it under 8. Don't let it go under 20% unless you're on a long trip, and don't let it go over 85% at home. Stay in that 80-20 range for your battery life. It lasts a lot longer. Now, look, when you go on a long trip, I charge it to 100, but they say never let it sit more than an hour at 100. So if you're getting ready to go on your trip, you can charge it to 100, but get in that car and go. And then when you get to your final destination at 12, maybe even 4%, I've gone as low as 3. Anything lower than 2, the car's going to shut off. Because to your point, Bruce, it's a brick, and then you will damage the battery for good. Anything under 2%, the battery's done. You can't get it back to where you want it to be. So the car's BMS will shut that off. But yeah, be careful with all of that. You learn, ask. Paul knows a lot. We have the literature in our website too.
What is that website, John?
It's www.beverything.com. There's tutorials, trainings. You can do your own. It's all free. There's tutorials. There's video trainings. There's tests you can take if you're a dealer, and then of course just video content to learn how to own and operate an EV.
As with anything else, the more research we do on a particular topic that we're involved with, the greater it is. You have a community online with BEV Everything, and there are other communities as well. It's just a question of change in mindset, right? You don't just blindly go out and do something. You need to make some adjustments because, yes, it is somewhat different. But once you're comfortable with those adjustments, it really shouldn't be that bad. When I was in the Tesla in Dallas, I asked the Uber driver, I said, well, so what if I wanted to go to New York from Dallas? He says, oh, piece of cake. So he literally put in the destination to New York City, and it will plot along the way all of the different charging stations available to you, what they're rated for, how long to get there. So you really should never, and I do mean never, run out of charge unless you put a blindfold on and completely disregard what it's telling you. You really should never run out of charge. Now, a question I have for you, John, is what are costs on some of the different, talk to us about some of the different charging types of chargers in home, and what are some of the costs associated with, and on top of that, are there tax incentives that then can bring that cost down as well?
Yeah, great question. So 2 things. One is on our site, by state, we have all the incentives. So there's federal incentives, but each utility. So in Mississippi, I think there's 3. In Texas, 7. California, 20 different electrical utilities, right? Co-ops. Each one does something different. So you have to live in their area, and so you can go find, Ray, you probably know this, the utility you belong to will have an incentive, and usually they'll take it off your bill. So go to the site, choose your state, and in that state you can search for EV state incentives. But to that point, so destination chargers, which are at level 2, is right there in the middle where you can charge your car in about 4 to 6 hours. Level 1 charger, as we know, is 110. It's how you plug your light plug in, right? It can charge your car in about 24 hours. So you're not going to do any of that on a trip.
From 10%, right?
Yeah. Probably to 80 in about,
Okay.
The level 2 charger can be plugged into a dryer unit. So you don't have to Ray, Ray and I installed our own high charger, but my father, when he got his, just put a 240 plug in his garage, and Tesla comes with its own mobile charger with a 240 plug. It comes when you buy a new vehicle, used when you won't get it, and you can stick it right in and then plug it into your car. So you can take that with you and go to grandma's house and plug it into her dryer, right? And that'll give you a full charge in your car in 4 to 6 hours, depending on how much charge you need and how many can. So you can pretty much have your own level 2 charger anywhere you go at somebody's house. And they make them now where there's a double prong, so grandma can still dry her clothes, and you plug in the backside of her dryer plug. So you both can enjoy the 240 voltage. Does that make sense?
4 to 6 hours, that's going from 10 to maybe 80 plus. You don't necessarily need to do that. And
no, that's just an overnight charge. Yeah.
Right. If you're staying at a relative's overnight, you're covered. If you're going for a barbecue, I can't imagine you spending less than 4 hours, right?
No. What they tell you is on trips, you're just looking, if Ray said this, you're looking to get to the next charger, right? The real fast charger from Tesla. So if I was stopping for an hour lunch with my mom at her home, give me 15 to 20 more percent so I can make it to the next destination fast charger. The costs are relatively small. And I did a study with Patrick Anderson at the Anderson Economic Group. They're one of the best in this. In different states, the home, and Ray, I'd love to hear yours. Ours is like 13 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's very inexpensive, right? The Tesla standard charging, fast charging out and about is around 21 cents per kilowatt hour. So it typically costs me for about 200 miles, about $11. So if you think about, do the math.
All right. I filled up my tank yesterday. I've got a Subaru Legacy, and it cost me, and I still had some range to go. It cost me $55.
Right. But think about this. Every EVs are considered luxury vehicles, like my son's Camaro and my wife's Yukon Denali. They require premium gas. So when I do my conversions for dealers and my consulting and for fleets, we consult with fleet companies too. I make sure that they're using the proper gas alternative, diesel and alternatives. But $4 or $5 a gallon, it's about 50% of the cost. If you're charging at home, like Ray and I do mostly, it's about a third of the cost. You save 2/3 of the money. So this year, we are 6 months in, almost 7 months in. I've saved $1,200 on fuel.
Wow.
Because it tells me my miles. I put in the average fuel price, and then it tracks it from there. And then it takes my utility number, what my utility charges. And every time I charge outside of home, Tesla tells it what it charged me, and it does all the math for me. And it says, this is what you'd have paid in fuel, and this is what you paid in true electricity charges. So I'll probably save about $2,000 this year in fuel, because I do drive a lot.
That's significant. Now, there's a level 1, there's a level 2, and there's a level 3 charger, correct?
Right. Level 3 being the DC fast chargers that take. Great. I don't know your experience. I'd love to hear it, but mine going from 20 to 80 is about 20 minutes, 18 to 25 minutes max. And I don't usually go down to 20. So it's so fast that I can barely go to the restroom and get a cup of coffee and get back in my car without Tesla charging me. I came to my car the other day because I ate lunch and I forgot. And my bill was $42 for 60%. I forgot that they charge you 50 cents a minute after your car is charged.
Right.
Because you got to get on out of there and let someone else go. And I love that feature. I love it. It's because Ford, GM, Stellantis, Rivian, they're all about to be in our Tesla spots. So I want them to get out fast too, get in and get out. So yeah. They
should pay $5 a minute. I said they should pay $5 a minute.
I agree. Yeah, because I think it's not enough for some, right? Because I see them sitting there all day.
Now, what does a level 1 charger cost? A level 2 and a level 3?
Yeah, level 1's pretty much in. So you can get it off of eBay for about $75. Level 2 charger about $250. The level 3 charger that Ray and I have, I put mine in myself, except in case the insurance company is here and I'm the electrician who hooked it up to the box, but I ran the cable. I did it for $750. Typically, it's about $1,000 to $1,500 to have the cable run to your 60 amp fuse out in the utility, and then through the roof into your garage. But about $1,500.
Now, how does that relate to solar? If somebody had solar panels on their home, could you tap into that as well?
Absolutely. Happens all the time.
So there really, given the low cost of the chargers, there really is no reason to not have one at home unless you were in a condo situation where you had to, like I'm in a condo, so they put out a specific directive on what we can and can't do, right? You can't have cables hanging all over the place outside on the sidewalk, but you can install an underground, and that's easy enough to do, to dig it up, and then one of the posts that comes up next to the parking space. So that can definitely be done. I think if you've already saved $1,200 this year on fuel, and what you just
and another $600 on oil changes. Okay.
On oil changes, not to mention what you're going to save on brake repair, because there wasn't a Tesla driver I met that had 70,000 miles on it that even had any brake work done.
Yeah, I'm a heavy brake user too, so that's a big one for me. I don't use brakes in my Tesla.
Given the cost of putting your own charger in, there's really no excuse not to have your own gas station at home, so to speak.
It's convenience. It's all about the convenience. And, even if you have the fast chargers, if you find the level 1 charge, level 3 charger, wherever you're going to go, you plug it in and you pay the little bit of money. It's funny. I was looking today, the last time we were connected to a Tesla fast charger, it charged us $5.76, and it was in April. I haven't connected to the fast charger since. I go home. If it's low, the wife will plug it in the morning, unplug it, and you're good to go. No different than you plug in your phone at night. So it's that much easier. And I did my electrical install myself, including into the box. But it's not all that difficult. I mean, I have a mechanical background, so it was pretty easy. But the downside with, if you're in a condo or stuff like that, is it requires 60 amp service, right? At least to get the maximum charge. And if you don't have that much capacity in your box, well, now it's a little bit of a different animal for you. You could step down and go to a 32 amp or a 36 amp deal, and it'll take a little bit longer to charge, but not monumentally longer. It still is going to easily charge up overnight. If you're a traditional, get home at 7, 8 o'clock and back off to work at 6 in the morning, you're good to go. You don't have any issue.
But even in the condo situation, adding a sub panel onto your box is really nothing.
Oh no! If you can get 60 amp service in a condo, there's no reason why you couldn't do exactly what we're doing here.
And
that's exactly what I had to do, Paul, was add a sub panel, right?
Yeah. So it's not the end of the world. Now, to put this all into perspective, okay, we spend more money on stuff, okay? I have a Fitbit Sense, which I really loved until my wife got an iWatch, an Apple Watch. Now I've got major envy of her Apple Watch, man.
We don't blame you.
Paul, with respect to the cost of charging, there's another component that factors in how much one can save. And I haven't figured out what I've saved in the 4 months, because I'm not that kind of guy who worries about that kind of stuff. But at least with Hyundai, and I suspect with other vehicle manufacturers as well, for purchasing the vehicle, I got 2 years of free charging. Free. Let me repeat that. Free charging at Electrify America stations. Now, the downside is the nearest one to my house is 30 miles away. There's one 5 miles from my girlfriend's house. So, that's what I use all the time. So I imagine the other car manufacturers have similar deals. So that has to be factored into what you're going to save over filling up on gas as well for that 2-year period. And when I do travel, I always look for, if I can, the EAs, because I'm getting free juice. But again, if I got to get somewhere, if there's no EA, I'll go to ChargePoint or EVgo or whatever. And you don't worry about it. I mean, when you got to fill up your gas tank, do you start sweating? Oh, I got to pay for gas?
Right.
You want to go? You got to go. You know what I mean?
That's it. And getting back, so the Apple Watch And now I've got an iPhone. She ended up upgrading her old Apple phone. So she's got a better one than me. So now I've got phone envy. They've improved the technology on them. But to put it all into perspective, a new watch and a new phone upgrade, there's $2,500 right there. And just that. And how many people today have an Apple phone and an Apple Watch, right? So to put it all into perspective, Bruce, 2 years of juice, that's unbelievable. I mean, imagine if you didn't have to pay for gas for 2 full years. That's huge.
So back in 20, go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, again, because the nearest ones are 30 miles away of that company, I charge at home. And just to expand for a second, I work at home. So there are times when I don't use the car for 2 days at a time. So I was going to install a level 2, but then I decided I didn't need it because I could plug in, I get home, like I'll get home tonight, there'll be about 65, 60%. I'll plug in and by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'm at 80% and I'm happy.
Yeah, it's a question of need.
It's a question of need, exactly.
Well, and it's the thing we try to teach dealers, Ray, and you guys will know this. We do a lot of consulting in the fixed ops, but more on the front side because that's where most of the business is now, is setting the right expectation with the curious, the intenders. Right. EV owners already know it. So if I'm an EV owner on a Tesla and I'm coming in on a Mach-E or a Ford Lightning, I've kind of got the understanding. Still want to talk about the differences in infrastructure. But when you get the curious and the intenders, but the non-owners, you will make enemies out of your brand loyal customers faster than anything else by not knowing EVs and selling them an EV that doesn't meet their experience. And that's how the conversation starts, where what we try to do is teach dealers to become experience centers. We're not trying to sell anything. As a matter of fact, you'll probably sell more ice having EV conversations, but we at least want to be the best in class experience centers for EVs. So you can test drive them, learn about them, take a course, see how we repair them, and then go buy that Camaro you were looking at, right? So that's the big one.
I want to share something with John that I shared with Paul a few weeks back. The dealership where I bought my Hyundai, when I went in for a service item, a minor thing, the service advisor did not know how to open the charging port door. Mm-hmm. So that tags on to what you're saying. The dealerships have to be properly educated. And a lot of reading that I do and a lot of the Facebook forums are fantastic for learning and asking questions. That's the case in a lot of places. That, there's one guy in the whole dealership who really knows these cars.
Yeah. And I put that squarely on the OEMs. Again, I'll go back and say, look, I love a lot of them I'm close to them and have a lot of affection for what they're trying to do. But their responsibility is to build an experience with the retail industry and with the customer first. If we're just trying to shove it down the industry's throat, nothing but production, truncating and completely mitigating ICE engine production in certain states, we're going to fail. And that's what we're here for. We're all trying to work together and encourage and educate them, because if we can do that, if we pay attention to that, we've got a pretty exciting future. Look, EV adoption is not going to be the primary source of production, I don't think, in my lifetime. I'm 55, maybe. But my point is, it is going to be big. Cox Automotive came out. I think it was 7.8% adoption in Q1. We're expecting 10% this year, maybe 25% by 2030. That's a big number, right? Yeah. But it's still the VIO, the vehicles in operation, will still far and outweigh. And Ray will know this. What he's going to see in his stores are going to see is just a flood of ICE engines for quite some time. And so we can't forget that. What's most important to dealers is P&L, and P&L is driven by gasoline and diesel right now. But we can nip around the edges and get in there and say, think about this, talk about this, study this, teach your service writers this. Let's train some new techs on high voltage. And Ray, I would love to hear your thoughts about how you're working in your organization, because I know it's a big one, and getting your guys ready for high voltage and working with the battery, because it's going to be something that maybe not in the first couple years, but in a few years you'll be doing a lot more of.
Oh yeah, it's all about education, not just education of the consumer, but education of the employees. And it's funny, yes, EV has been a boon for obviously that segment and so on and so forth. But it's also been a boon for traditional manufacturers, because you touched on it before. Without planning, without knowing what you're getting into, I can't tell you how many newer low mileage Teslas have been traded back in for their ICE counterparts because the customers weren't ready for and weren't explained what to expect. So you'll find great deals on low mileage EVs. You're not getting your tax credit, but typically you're going to save a bunch of money on that used EV that's very new because the guest just didn't know what to expect. So you got to educate and make sure that people are understanding. We talk about KPIs. KPI means keep people informed, and we use a different version in the car business, but you got to keep your guests informed. And then as far as the adoption at the store level, there's all kinds of preparations that you're doing from an infrastructure standpoint, from a fast charger. Every manufacturer wants you to buy this equipment, that equipment, and like all technology, who knows how quickly that technology is going to be outdated. So at the end of the day, we're going to make the investments that we are required to make, but we also need to be very prudent. As far as the people side, we started a steering committee with technicians, and we've recruited a group of technicians all across America in our stores to kind of not just tell them what we think, but more importantly, to hear what they think. What do we need to do? What do you guys feel like we need to do? And what's likely going to wind up happening is they're going to say a lot of the things that we kind of already know, but the involvement is important, right? Having a voice and having a say-so in what preparations, what investments, where to put the stuff. And you'd be shocked at how many aha moments you have by listening to your people, because they're the ones that are out there on the front lines. They're the ones that are, in the case of the technicians, they're going to fix the darn things. Why would we set up that EV bay over here in the middle of the shop next to the wash rack, right? So there's things like that. There's insights that we'll get from that committee about truly being ready for EV. Right now, our EV prep, we're working on a playbook for how to handle EVs. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but we're still in the infancy stages, really, of getting truly ready for EV, getting ready for the types of additional services to do on EVs and so on and so forth. Granted, there's no oil changes, right? But we're going to be the premier tire dealers, right? Because there's going to come a time where oil changes are going to be replaced by tire, right? So your tire replacement will be your next oil change on your EV, and we're going to be ready for that.
Now, I'm going to make a couple of comments there. Robert Charbonneau says, "Hello, great insights," and Steve DiMarzio, "With the drop in gas revenues, won't EVs be taxed per mile to make up for lost taxes?"
Yeah, so everyone in this call will know that we do pay an extra tax for EVs. We pay. I'm assuming the other folks do, and even in Mississippi. So I'm the most rural of the three, I bet. I got stung with a $175 registration tax for my EV, including my regular registration fees, and I will every year, and that is to make up for the road tax. So they do a good job of doing that up front. But I offset it with the $2,000 a year savings just in fuel alone. I'll probably save $2,750 this year. Fuel, brakes, and oil changes, right? So in my Yukon Denali, I get 4 oil changes a year, and they're run about $250 to $350 per. So you do the math. I won't have to do that. Also, the repair and maintenance side of these things, Ray will tell you, but there's only 20 plus moving parts versus 2,000, and that the powertrain is a battery and an electric motor, right? So there's a lot less to do and a lot less to break. So it's okay. People, they want to nitpick at the little fees that come all around it, like fast charge is 23 cents instead of your 11 cents at home, or you pay an extra 175. They're getting you, boy, they're going to get it. But it all really is factored into cost of ownership, and it's still very favorable.
Yeah, and there's a point and a counterpoint to everything. You hear, oh, these guys are, here comes a vehicle with a gas powered generator to charge your Tesla. It's on the side of the road. Okay, well, whatever. I just don't see. And the reality is, the only time I'm going to a traditional, what I would even call a traditional gas station to fuel up, to charge, is when I'm on a long road trip, right? And since I got the car, I haven't taken a big enough road trip to justify going to a charging station. So oddly enough, the purchase experience, I didn't like. And we went to go pick up the vehicle, and Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock is what she scheduled. And we get there and there's nobody there. I mean, there's nobody there. And they wanted us to walk up to the car, identify the car from the VIN number on the phone, and then the car would unlock and then we'd get in and we'd drive away. But then, like, where's the card key? And oh, by the way, she has a trade. And what do we do with the plate? And blah, blah, blah. So, we walked around the building 6 times and went in through an entrance that said employees only and found some person sitting at a desk eating their lunch or something. And oh yeah, so-and-so's out there. Go around the other side and see he's trying to help deliver 4 different people by himself. And there's no education. There's no traditional dealership delivery process where they touch the buttons with you and ask you if you have any questions or anything like that. I dare say my delivery experience was horrible. We took on the car, and everything we've learned about the vehicle so far, we've learned by sheer happenstance. So my wife is the primary driver, obviously, and every once in a while she lets me drive it. But she discovered a really cool feature where the car connects to our garage door opener, right? So we don't ever even touch the garage door opener button anymore. We pull out, the car gets 100 feet away from the garage door, it automatically closes the garage door, and we drive away and the mirrors open, right? And when you get to within 100 feet coming back home, garage door opens, mirrors fold, and right into the drive. It's really kind of cool. So, if you haven't driven one, I encourage everybody to drive, because you touched on it before. It's really fun to drive, and mine is not the fast one, hers is not the fast one, but it is ungodly fast. It's faster than most ICE vehicles that I've driven. And it's not the performance model at 0 to 60 in 4.5 or 4.8 seconds, which is pretty darn fast.
It's quick. The
SC430. The torque.
It's amazing.
Well,
it's absolutely amazing, the torque.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we heard, I want to make sure we heard what Ray just said, because it is at the heart of the dialogue and the back and forth in our industry about the agency model. No one does retail like automotive dealers.
Nobody.
And dealers have known for years that, at least in North America, that the relationship is at the ground level. And that's how you win brand loyalty. That's how you take market share. Tesla has done an amazing job of putting a model together that yields 11 to 15,000 per copy. And people start salivating, thinking, I want to do that. The problem is, and Ray just said it, it was my experience too, it was my father's experience, and everybody that I've spoken to, is that the actual delivery experience, the sales process and delivery experience is horrible, because it's like a bunch of techies trying to deliver a car, right? They think you know what they know. They think that all you should do is just walk up with your phone and drive away. And let me tell you, not only is that 100% inaccurate, all the studies that I've seen say that 74% want to buy from a dealer. And when it comes to EV, it's even higher, because they want that at least that final leg of, I need to touch it, feel it, smell it, where I don't have to take ownership of it until I actually see it and make sure. The high tech and high voltage EVs even more. So we have to learn from what Ray just said and what our experience. I hope OEMs are listening, and I know they're if not, they're here. It's being said is that you can't substitute, and especially in something like this, high tech, high voltage, unknown, the dealer delivery model. They have it. Experience centers, absolutely. We're teaching dealers, forget about retail, become an experience center. But we're not telling them to forget about what you do best. Still do all that, but we're not trying to sell anymore. We're trying to teach, consult, and then deliver and service. And if we can get dealers to do that, OEMs they're going to embrace it, because they don't know how to do it. And Tesla, who's the best at everything EV, is the worst at that. And that's what's proven to me that OEMs can't do it without us, without our dealers.
I've got a couple of ads here. Let me get to a couple of comments. Stephen Wisner, great discussion. Thank you. Dan Clemens says, still need wiper blades, cabin filters, and smart key batteries, 100%. And Dina Haynes says, two extra back tires. Now, the takeaway that I have here, and it doesn't matter whether it's internal combustion engine or an electric vehicle, it's training. training is something that every or most companies fail at miserably. Okay. There's a company out there today, and those of us in automotive know this person, who has made a business out of having dealers hire them to show them how to use the products that they're paying other companies for, because those other companies aren't providing the service that this gentleman's company provides. So you heard it here first. If somebody has the time to put together, I think there's a business model around, somebody offering that service on a mobile basis. So if you have to go and figure out on your own when you're taking delivery of your car, there's nothing that's stopping somebody from starting a company that will accompany that person to go pick up that car and do that, show you how everything works type of thing for a fee. I think there'd be very few people that wouldn't want to pay for that kind of service. Is there such a service in existence today?
Not that I'm aware of. Not definitely not in the EV space. But at the end of the day, that's the missing link, right? Because you don't get the traditional buying experience. Forget about car buying experience. You just don't get the traditional buying experience. It's a leap of faith, right? And it's not a small leap of faith. It's funny, we're talking about EV adoption and when it's going to happen. I remember vividly saying, I'm never going to put my credit card online and buy something online. What's wrong with you? Now, freaking Amazon, I get more cardboard boxes than a dealer parts department. It's ridiculous.
You don't have to type your credit card in anymore. They know your face.
They see, they read my eyes and they say, "Oh, it's you again." It's really simple. But at the end of the day, the piece that's missing from Tesla, and I think they're going to get it sooner or later, is that actual brick and mortar experience. So there's a Tesla dealership being built about 5 miles from my home, and I can't wait to go over and see what that looks like, because even the you hear, oh, people want to buy online. Oh, bullshit. Not a car. And the reality is, if you think about the cost of your trade-in, right? Wait a minute. How much do you say for my trade? Well, I get this from CarMax. Well, you're okay to sell it over there. Yeah, but then you don't get the tax break. Well, they know that, but it's just so foreign. It's going to take a while to really catch on, especially when you don't have that, I'll call it hand-holding at the dealership level, where they're walking you to the next step and, come on in, the water's warm. You're just jumping in, and you better hope it's warm. But the amount of them that get traded in pretty quickly, we don't buy any that I'm aware of from auctions and whatnot. But the last time I checked, we had like 40 plus of them in stock that were traded. And
wow.
So
and that's all because the information isn't properly communicated to the customer. They're missing a huge boat there. That's got to be.
It's also for upgrades. Now, a lot of people are trading in their 3 and 4 year old model. To your point earlier, Paul, technology is changing, and $8,000 off a Model Y or Model S, or $4,500 tax credit on a Model 3, it's down in the $35,000 range right now with 50 more miles. I want the brand new one with 50 more miles. You can have my 2019. Here you go. So the rapid affordability aspect of EVs, meaning the cost is coming down, plus the rapid advancement of technology in range, right? And of course, features, right? The 9-year-old has different features than the 3-year-old. Have people trading up. But guess what? Tesla doesn't give you a lot. They give you the first pencil. So they'd rather go, if a dealer will give them more, they'll go and put it with a dealer. And they're trading to Mach-E's, and they're trading to Taycans, and they're trading to Ionics and Kia. Well, Kia's got a beautiful one now. So it's getting really competitive. We're going to see, to Ray's point, a ton of used Teslas. There's 750,000 used Teslas that are 3 years or older in the VIO. I think in the last 2 years, 2015, think about that, there's millions. I think 1.7 million. So the point is, wow, it's coming. And Ray and his team, I know they're trying to get ready for it, because those Teslas are going to be used. They're going to need recon work. They're going to be out of warranty. You can do body work on a Tesla out of warranty. Chevy stores do them every day.
Yep.
And recall.
And recalls. Yeah.
That's huge.
Well, the recalls on
This is
Tesla
big
come over
business.
the air.
Yeah, but the Chevy Bolt, right, and there's many others, right? Ford had a software-driven recall, all that kind of stuff. The dealers are going to handle, and it's going to be an interesting world. But I got to tell you, I think we're trying to tell everybody here is I love it. I never thought I would convince my wife. She's in now. We're never going back. And I still have 2 ICE engines, and we probably will always need at least one going into the mountains. But let's tell you, I can go to the mountains with my 240 plug, right? I'm fine being in the middle of a mountain and miles away from everybody. But I think your audience, with your participants here, would tell you the same thing. I'm sold.
Yeah, I want to make one comment, if I can.
Yep.
Actually, 2 comments. One is something John said a little while ago. I had a little technical issue. I appeared for a few minutes. But obviously, you have not been in the Northeast. I just looked at my receipt from my charging today.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't have to pay it because it gets credited 48 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
You're mentioning 23, I think. 20
Yeah,
cents.
Tesla averages about 23, but you're not talking about Tesla.
No, not Tesla.
Yeah.
But 48 cents. This was Electrify America, 48 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's a good thing Hyundai's paying for me. My other comment, and again, I blipped out for 30 seconds. You were talking about used EVs. I mean, as a consumer, I would never buy a used EV from an individual because I'm not getting a battery warranty, and I don't know how that battery's been treated and what's going on with that battery. My Hyundai battery is warranted for 10 years. So as far as used EVs are concerned, I would never buy one other than from a dealer with a warranty.
Yeah, but don't the batteries have like your cell phone, for instance? You can look at the health report and it tells you what the health is of the cell phone battery. Isn't it the same thing with an EV, John?
So they have onboard health diagnostics you can use in repair mode. So you can do that on your own. Tesla's opened that up, but there are health tools out there that will hook up directly to the battery or over the air and have the battery talk to it and tell its degradation schedule. Geotab has the best data, so geotab.com. But I'll tell you this, the 10-year or 8 to 10 years, 100 to 120,000 mile powertrain warranty includes the electric motor and the battery. And other than that, everything else is nil. I mean, it's very inexpensive stuff, right? We had our electric motor go out in year 9. They were 2 weeks later had a brand new electric motor. These fleet companies you're talking about, the little taxi services, right, with a million mile batteries. I know 2 companies that have 50 and 75 Teslas in service between 300 and 750,000. One with 1 million miles. Only 2 of them have had to replace the battery. My father's car is running on 10 years old, and the battery health is at 92%. The battery is going to be 1 million mile battery, and unless you have an anomaly or a bad battery or a recall, you're going to have a battery that outlasts the chassis of that car. The chemistry and the architecture is that way.
Well, what's interesting is that there's a lot of fear mongering. Oh, if the battery goes, it's going to be $8,000. What people fail to realize is, A, what you just said right there, how long they last, number one, and B, if a internal combustion engine went on a car today, you're looking at minimum, and I mean minimum, $8,000 to $10,000, if not closer to $12,000 to replace that engine. You're replacing a V10 on a Ford truck. It's going to cost you a whole lot more than an EV battery is. Let me get to a couple of comments. Lowell Wilson Sr. says, your customer service mediator is here. I think Lowell's stepping up. He's going to start the business. You heard it here first on Sunday Night Live. The tip of the year on a new business to start, and I think you'll have no competition. Michael Weldon says, John, you are spot on. Well, that's because John is a resident expert on EVs. 9 years owning one, and to hear Ray talk about, the rest of the industry is essentially coming to grips with it now and coming up with a plan now, which is essentially 10 years later. That's pretty astounding. right? With all the fear mongering that we hear, it clearly isn't a problem for most people, or we would have heard more of it, not from the oil companies, but from the actual people driving them. And I don't hear those horror stories from people driving them. Lowell Wilson Sr. says 10-4 of that. So yeah, this has been an interesting show. A couple of takeaways for me is that dealerships, but they have large rooftops. There's a lot of dealerships changing over to solar power these days, and with the electric, the credits and all that, a lot of them are getting that done for almost no money, right? As far as cars needing service, yes, there's less moving parts, but you'll need more tires with an EV. And consumer sentiment, if you read, Automotive News and any of these other publications, they'll tell you that the consumer sentiment is they have more faith in an OEM, a dealer, servicing those EVs than they do an independent repair shop. So there's an opportunity there. When 7 in 10 of our customers in the dealership world are leaving us for the aftermarket, there's an opportunity for us to get back that service business. And we have to look at it differently. We can't just look at it as, we're going to make $1 million on every repair, because we're not. But tires is going to be the new business when it comes, when we start getting larger adoption. Right now, it's still small. And even if we go to 10, 20, or 30%, in the grand scheme of things, that's a small percentage of the business. I don't think we're going to have anything like cash for clunkers that's going to get rid of all these gas engine vehicles. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But it's interesting to see where we've come over the last 10 years. And it's even more interesting to see where we're going, because John, you can attest to this, and Ray, you probably as well. The technology is changing. Oh, we just lost Ray. The technology is changing so rapidly that, it's here. We can't turn our backs on it. Any final comments from you, Bruce?
The car is great. The service experience, as I've pointed out a couple of times, has been less than great, but the car is fun to drive. As long as you do your planning, you'll get where you want to go.
Any final thoughts from you, Ray?
And I would just add to Bruce, you'll get where you want to go with very little deadhead time. That's what people say. Well, I don't care if I get where I want to go. I don't want to take an extra 3 hours out of the trip. And that's not the case. That's just another myth. There's small stops for 10 to 20 minutes max. And it doesn't take you off route more than a mile to 2.5 miles max. You don't have to turn around 12 miles and come back. All those things are myths, especially in the Tesla. But Bruce, probably the same for you, because you have that service package. Yeah,
and when you're at a DC fast charger, like you said, you can go from 20 to 80 in 20 minutes. I mean, and Hyundai actually advertises 18 minutes for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's part of their advertising.
Yeah. Barely enough time for me to use the restroom.
Funny story. If I have the time, some people I know where I sat in my first EV Teslas in California, they were telling us, well, when we stop and charge, we get out, we take a walk, we hang out, we get some steps in. And it was March, and we're like, no, it's 20 degrees here. We're not getting out of the car.
Well, those that know me know that I could easily kill 20 minutes on a food venture. So that would be no problem for me. Ray, any final thoughts?
I'm looking forward to the standardization of the charging connections, right? That'll be a big move. And I think Tesla's made a really smart decision to open up their network. They didn't say it was going to be cheaper, right? They said that they're opening up the network. And I think that's going to help the standardization of the actual plug itself, which will be a good step forward. And then the next step that I really can't wait to see is what Toyota is going to do, because they've been taking a back seat for a long time, and they've been criticized publicly for a long time. But if you know anything about automotive, Toyota's no dummy. Right? That company has been around for a long time, and they've hung back and they've watched all the everybody else's pawns and knights and rooks be moved into different spots. And here they're just watching the whole time. And they announce that high range battery, etc. You take something like that, make it fun to drive, standardize the plug so you can get wherever you're going. I mean, if I had a car that was 800 miles, my family lives in South Florida. It's a 350-mile trip. I'd round trip that thing in one deal. Yeah, it's amazing. And Toyota will be on the forefront of that. They, all the OEMs have let Tesla get out a little bit too far ahead, but Toyota is going to catch them. Right? They'll be
I agree, Ray. The 900-mile battery is a solid-state battery. It's not ready yet, but if anybody can do it, Toyota will do it. Look, we have solid-state in all of our small electronics. The problem with vehicle application is heating and expanding and contracting. Solid-state electrolytes it's tougher with that size of voltage going through it, but they'll get there. It'll happen. And so we can talk more about that next time. But I'm with you, Ray. I think Toyota's no dummy. I worked for them for a few years, and it'd be fun to watch them.
Any final thoughts, John?
That was it. I'm excited. We can talk more about new technologies next time. That's a fun subject too.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I hope this was informative for those watching either live tonight or on the replay. We get a large section of the population that watches it on the replay because I get messaging sometimes 45 minutes into an hour show weeks later. If you're like the rest of us, you remember what you forgot to ask when you had the opportunity to do so, and by all means, feel free to put it in the comments because one or all of us will answer it whenever that is. And we're always looking to expand our network to like-minded individuals that bring value. So if we're not connected, if you're not connected to any one of us on the panel, and you're relevant to what we do, or we are relevant to what you do, we'd be happy to connect. So thank you all for watching. Gentlemen, stay on after we log off for a second. Earl Sticks Brown says, great panel. Thanks, Paul. Thank the audience. And thank John, and thank Ray, and thank Bruce. This has been great. I wish you a safe and successful next week, and we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Thanks for watching.